We're back. Welcome to
hey,
it's like we never left. You changed it. Why did you change it? We matched.
I know.
Just returning some videotapes. We both had the exact same thought. We're back. Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Rich. Happy New Year to Natasha, who we're going to bring in right now. Hello, Natasha.
Hi, guys.
Oh, now we all have three different ones. It's amazing. Okay, well, welcome to
I didn't get up and leave my sofa, which I was about to do to go get slippers. But I'm welcome. I'm very happy to be back on Generation Movie starting 2024.
Woo! Slippers. We don't need slippers in Florida. It's 70 degrees. Anyway, I know you guys are. Yeah, well, I understand. Welcome to Generation Movie for 2024. My name is JW Colwell. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, my film buff buddy. Say that 3 times fast. Rich Drees of FilmBuff Online and the
problem back here.
Philadelphia Film Critics Circle. And we are joined this year for sporadic things from Natasha Bogutzki for the year. We hope to see her more, but she will definitely be here for the first 4 episodes of 2024, where we have invited her to talk about some films that inspired her and kind of a curator, really, which is great for us. And because it makes, I don't know if Rich realizes this, and I'm sure Natasha doesn't, but it makes it easy on me because I don't have to do as much work. So she picks the movies. I watch them and talk about them, and it's
this
nice.
Was actually a lot of fun to try to find very influential, but
influential ladies.
Yes,
ladies.
Films done by ladies.
Ladies. But so we're here in 2024. I want to welcome everybody. If you are a fan of the show, if you like the show, if you like the network and what the network is doing, and we're working really hard to make that a viable thing, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It takes you 30 seconds, I think. I liked and subscribed early on. But like and subscribe to the YouTube network channel, Indie Escape Network. We also, of course, have the Facebook page that is also really good on Indie Escape on Facebook page. We are on Twitter tonight, but as we progress throughout the year, we will be coming off of X and going on to Instagram. So our time and days are numbered on Elon's failed money grab. But you can like us and find all of our episodes on YouTube. And, some comments. Our first comments 2024. Joe Ridgely, good evening, Al. Shout out to our brother Ken, who's a bit under the weather. Yeah, I want to give a big shout out to Ken McKernan, who won't get to watch until next week. He's in intensive care. So
yikes.
The world is finite. He got a little sick during the holidays, and I'm concerned for him, but he sent me a message that he was upset he couldn't make it tonight. And I'm like, you're in intensive care.
Yeah.
Fucking relax and get better, will you, buddy?
Yeah.
You can get better. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll find somebody to watch it. But just get better, because we appreciate your comments and everything you do. Hi, Sean Smith. And hey, everyone. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to Sean. I know Sean's coming down off the high. I still want to know, Sean, if any of the mentions on our shows on the network did right by you. I know you and I are working on something for our show, but I'm just want to make sure we're helping folks out. Because it's actually, Sean, I don't know if you know this, but it's kind of led to a thing we're doing on the network, Rich and Natasha, where we're doing a reach out for, and we're going to talk about this more later on the night, but Sean's thing led us to do this, which is if you're creative and have a new indie movie trailer and a commercial, if you email it to us, we will play it on an upcoming Indie Escape Network show that Joe and I are coordinating. But it's not just movies or trailers or commercials. It's if you got stuff. Are you a mom and pop business? Are you a creative person that is selling pictures on the internet? Or like Sean selling really cool stuff he's doing on the internet, it is a great place for us to try to worm our way into other creative venues that we want to be part of and we want to help out.
We are supporting creatives.
Yes. Anyone else excited about DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1 coming out on digital tomorrow? Yes. You're not. Did you already see it?
I've seen a little bit of it.
Is it bad?
And I'm not a fan of the character design. I'm not a fan of how the design of the show.
Okay. That would be a weird thing. DC Animated usually does things pretty well.
It's animated. I was like, didn't they just fucking do it a couple of years ago?
They did, but it was. Joe was upset with you.
I will say this though,
I think it means
design is always very, in the eye of the beholder. So if, I like the look of things that other people are like, that's terrible, and I think things are terrible.
Okay, so we don't we don't know about that. But there's a lot of things dropping this week. I mean, we have there's an entire Marvel show is dropping tomorrow as well. So have you seen that as well?
Is it before 11 o'clock on the East Coast?
Okay, fine. We can't talk about it. But have you seen it? Have you seen all of it?
Disney only sent out screeners for the first 3 episodes. But
because it's
social media embargo drops at 11 o'clock tonight. So
let me just ask a question, because it's being. Let me just tell you what it's being used as. The idea that it's out there and all of the episodes and the embargo are happening right around the drop of the episodes is being
the
used as
written review embargo is at 9 o'clock tomorrow evening.
Right, but that's being used that the show is terrible. So I don't know. I just want to see. I specifically, the only action figure I bought from the Marvel line in the last 2 years, I got him for Christmas. I have my Fisk doll that I can just. I now own Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, so I don't care. I'm if it's violent, if it's good. I like the girl from when she was in the Hawkeye show.
Hawkeye.
I liked Hawkeye. I think Hawkeye was underrated.
I love Hawkeye.
I hope to have
Hawkeye was great.
Tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Fun. It was good.
Of these first 3 episodes, and if the other 2, maybe a part 2 for the other 2 after they.
That's interesting. You want to come on? You can come on with your buddy Bill Gadavakis tomorrow night. He's coming on
to talk tomorrow.
He's on Loud and Nerdy tomorrow night. So.
Hey.
Yeah.
Freaking film buff family over here.
Yeah, I'm cultivating. I'm cultivating creatives.
Robbing.
Is he poaching us?
I think so.
Is poaching
kind of
poaching usually involves I'm stealing a goat, but you show up when I ask you to.
I sometimes show up when you don't ask me to.
That's what I'm saying. It's even worse. Anyway. But the other thing that happened last night, of course, was the Golden Globes. So let me just talk briefly about my Golden Globes experience last night. I watched the show and I like it because it's fun, but last night was a fucking mess. Like the way the design, I don't know who designed the place. I don't know. I've never seen at any award show more people not knowing how to get to a fucking set of stairs in my life. I've never seen it. And I've also never seen more people uncomfortable in their tables having to get up and move. And it's not like it's fucking Aunt Martha that has to get up and move. It's like if you look up and Steven Spielberg's getting up to move so somebody can go by, or Scorsese. Scorsese didn't get up once. What am I saying? He's too old for that shit. But I just thought that was really weird and wonky, especially since we know that the Globes is very drinky. So you had all these drunk people, plus they couldn't find the stage, plus like, you know, some people didn't realize that they should be wearing certain outfits they were wearing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, and then they gave a comedian who I like in general, a shot at this. And it's just, how do you say this, Rich? Hosting an award show isn't for everybody.
That's one way of putting it.
Shocker.
Him this morning.
Joe Coy?
Yeah.
You didn't? Okay. He's even played the Kirby within the last year.
He's big. He's probably he's probably one of the biggest right now touring comics, like in the country. But just
first of all, you know, I'm not a Golden Globes fan. I've always felt the Hollywood Foreign Press Association is just rampant with corruption, and this is, you know, it's always
You're jealous. You never got a bag, Rich. I'm jealous. Yeah. I never got a bag too.
I would love a gift bag worth more than my annual salary at my stupid day job. Trust me. But so last night I was out with Natasha actually, and we were watching another type of gold, a gold ring getting tossed into a volcano. We did the yesterday we did the Lord of the Rings extended edition marathon.
We don't have a cinema close enough for me.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
It's like what I asked for my birthday was to have my closest friends come do this experience with me.
Mm-hmm. We did the Hobbit. I'm going to be honest with you. We did the Hobbit experience 3 or 4 years ago, and it was like after a certain point, I was just like, first off, the Hobbit movies aren't as good, right? That's one thing. But after about 4 or 5 movies in, or two or three movies in, I was just like, I gotta go. I can't. Yeah, and then I realized the movie that we're going to see was the new one that was the very end. So it was like, oh, I can't leave, and this is just.
No.
I feel trapped.
Was it your tailbone? Because my tailbone was hurting midway through.
If your tailbone is hurting, yes, what you would affectionately call my tailbone, which is kind because it's much more like a tail section. It's more plain than it is bone. And yeah, it was hurting, and then I felt like midway through, I'm like, I would there's very few things I would do this for ever again. And I was trying to run them through my head, like, would you do Star Wars like this? Would you do Lord of the Rings, like and then the extended editions? But I was also looking at it going, I don't know at 50, which I turned 50 this week. I don't know that I have the stamina.
Happy birthday!
Did you not know this?
I knew it was your birthday, but I didn't know it was your 50th.
Yeah, it was very little fanfare. Yeah, 50. I just don't know that I have a stamina to do a boatload of really lengthy films one after the other.
That's fair. Now, I want to get back to the Golden Globes for a second because I was only halfway through my thought.
We're good.
Welcome back, my friends, to the tangents that never end. The Hollywood Foreign Press Association has kind of like dissolved and been moved away from the Golden Globes, and the award itself, the awards program itself, was purchased by this consortium of a couple of companies, including Penske Media. Now, if you're not familiar with Penske Media, they do publish some trade journals. Well, actually, they publish most of the trade journals. They own the Hollywood Reporter, Variety, and the online outlet Deadline. And it's kind of weird that to own an award show that also, and while also owning companies that get a lot of revenue from For Your Consideration ads for your award show, it feels like there's a whole different new kind of conflict going on there. So
that's interesting. Also, a lot of clicks. A lot of clicks.
I'm happy for you, but just for me, I'm just like, no, it's a little too dicey for my taste.
Well,
but if you
the interesting takeaway is, again, it's really hard to host these shows. That's one of the takeaway. Like, I think when they did the couple shows where you and I were talking, remember when they did the Oscars and you and I were like, how the fuck are you going to do this without a host? And then they did it. And again, afterwards, we were still like, how the fuck are you going to do this without a host? And it just didn't work. Coy was definitely swimming in deep water. Funny, because his name's Coy. But he was like, I felt bad for him because he didn't know how to maneuver it. Now, the funny thing is they had a lot of good presenters, and some of the presenters were in on it. Although one of them, like Gaffigan, not reading a conservative view of the room is not. I mean, Gaffigan dropped a pedophile joke 3 seconds in.
Wow.
You didn't hear about this?
No, the only bit I saw was the Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig bit.
Fantastic! That was a fantastic bit. There was another low key bit between. Oh God, I'm going up on her name. Ray Romano and Kerry Russell. There was a really good bit with Ray Romano and Kerry Russell about how he wasn't going to lie anymore and how he really enjoyed her in the Diplomat. And then he goes, and do you have anything to say? And she's like, nope. And so it was kind of funny, like the idea that everybody at these shows is constantly talking about how great your stuff is and they haven't seen it. So that was kind of good. But Gaffigan came out for the award for Best Comedic Performance, which they awarded to Ricky Gervais for Armageddon, which is a terrible show. And then, but he started with, I'm from Indiana. I don't really understand the room. And much like you guys, I don't, he said something else and then he goes, but I'm not a pedophile. So maybe I'm not getting it.
Wow,
fucking crickets. And the thing is, I think Gaffigan's a really good comic, but
he's an amazing comic. And it surprises me though, because he works so clean, and he prides himself on that. And I'm fine with that. I enjoy a comic who can curse a blue streak. I have all of Bill Hicks' albums. I don't mind a comic who can work clean.
But it was weird. It was weird. It was like, and they gave the 2 awards.
They didn't know how to deploy the use of dirty material.
Well, the idea that if you're making a joke about a bunch of Hollywood people in a room, maybe not calling them the pedophile, which is what's been thrown at them, weaponized at them, might not be the way to go. But he was presenting for the first time for that first time award, a comedic show. And there were other shows that were involved, like that were much better that didn't win. And then Mark Hamill came out to give the award for Blockbuster, your cheesesteak award that now has a viable place in award shows apparently. And Barbie won. So it was a weird kind of moment because it was like Barbie got killed everywhere else the entire night. And then it wins the Popcorn Award from MTV. And it won the Billie Eilish song, obviously. And then it just kind of looked this weird moment where it could have been any of the other movies they had nominated in the Popcorn Award, but they had both Barbie and Oppenheimer in that award category. So it wasn't just like, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 or Across the Spider-Verse. You know what I mean? Like something that most Americans have gone to see at a theater. And not that Barbie hasn't been, but the idea that Barbie and Oppenheimer were in the category as well. And it became Barbie's only major win of the night. Problematic.
I think the real.
Go ahead, Natasha. Go ahead.
I just got done rewatching Barbie 2 weeks ago and Oppenheimer tonight. I think the foreign press agency has their smoke blowing up their own ass right now, because there are some things that Oppenheimer does not deserve that should have gone to Barbie. If anything, screenplay. Now, I know this is going to be from an adaptational standpoint.
Screenplay got beat by, it didn't get beat by Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer didn't win screenplay. And not even Fall won screenplay. So they actually, in all honesty, the awards last night were as diverse and as wonderful as you could hope. You had 2 wins for acting, the acting comedy races, for Joy Divine Randolph for the Holdovers, Paul Giamatti for the Holdovers. You had Emma Stone win for Poor Things. You had it was a good night, but just not for Barbie. Like, it was a weird, and then Barbie won the popcorn award and was like, and you know,
there's also that cutting line between dramatic and comedic.
And comedy and musical. Yeah, and it never works. And it always goes haywire, but I don't think that Oppenheimer won 5 last night.
Wait. Oh, there I am. Okay. No, I disagree that it doesn't work. What it does is, because this is the stepping stone to the Oscars, it's showing you who the 2 major front runners are. The ones that are giving the loud performance and the person who is giving the subtle performance.
Well, actually, you were right. I was wrong. I had said earlier last year in 2023 that I thought it was between Barbie, Oppenheimer, and Killers of the Flower Moon. You are right. It's between Oppenheimer and Poor Things. Mm-hmm. And the Holdovers. I think the Holdovers are going to dominate the acting awards. The Holdovers are going to be like, I think we're going to see different things happening with the Holdovers, where it's about time Paul Giamatti wins an Oscar. Is where we're at.
Great. By the way, speaking of Mr. Giamatti and the Golden Globes, did you see the picture that was floating around on social media today? After the Golden Globes, he went to In-N-Out Burger, and there's a picture of him just sitting there eating a burger, and his Golden Globe is like right there. It's not like a stage shot. He's just like his burger.
His speech was amazing.
Like, over on the side.
His speech was incredible too. His speech was absolutely impeccable. He got up and he's like, I don't know why Alexander Payne loves me. I don't understand. I don't understand why he trusts me, but he does. And thank God he does. Thank God I'm an actor that gets to speak his words. And then he said, I like to also dedicate this to all the teachers in my family, because it's a movie about teachers. And it was a really good speech. Very quick, to the point. Christopher Nolan won Best Director. His speech was great too. And that's what I think happened at this year's Golden Globes, is that it became this, not that it hasn't always been a springboard for the Academy Awards races, but it really became a big springboard because Nolan's speech was really very touching. And he got up and he said, I haven't been on this stage since I accepted the award for Heath Ledger. And to be honest, with the movies I make and who I work with, I never thought I was going to be back. And so I realized the gravity of the moment, and I just wanted, I'm thank you for this amazing award. And it was very moving, like the idea that, he realized midway through, like, I haven't been on this stage since I accepted an award for a performance of a movie that came out a long time ago. You know what I mean? For an actor that was amazing.
I'm thinking currently right now, and I still have to see Poor Things, but I'm analyzing.
You're going to fucking love it.
I'm analyzing the movie. Poor Things is probably going to win Best Picture. Director's finally going to go to Nolan, because that's their way of saying it's time. and this movie is really good, and you helped save our industry.
I think that's a great way to look at it, but I also think one of the things that's happened since the pandemic, and Rich, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but one of the things that has happened since the pandemic is that Hollywood realizes how important people going to theaters is. And I think, don't get me wrong, Poor Things is genius, but I can't send everybody to Poor Things. And that's just a personal thing. Like if somebody calls me and sends me, I get messages all the time, Natasha, like, should I go see this movie? Will I like this movie? And I have to gauge whether or not. And don't get me wrong, I think Poor Things is brilliant. I wasn't ashamed of the nudity, or I wasn't uncomfortable, or any of those things. But it is a spectacularly very niche audience movie. It's wonderful. It's amazing. And for people like us who see every movie and watch everything, it's wonderful in ways we can't even imagine. And 3 or 4 years from now, we'll be talking about it, how important it is as one of the defining feminist movies of our time, just because Emma Stone is all over it. But I think Oppenheimer's going to win.
Well,
I don't know why.
In 2 weeks, we will be on the eve of the Academy Award nominations. And when we get those nominations, I think we're going to see a lot of Oppenheimer. We're going to see a lot of Barbie. And we're going to see, some, Killers of the Flower Moon, some other films that people have,
holdovers.
Kind of a lot of people have seen. And I think based on that, we're actually going to see like some better ratings for the Oscar show.
Well, that is something that came out earlier. The Golden Globes were up 50%.
Oh,
they
wow.
hit 9.4 million, up 50% from 2023's ratings. I think, and this goes.
I still miss it. I completely forgot that it was happening last night. I didn't.
Well, no, but the interesting thing here is, I think ratings, and this is what I've said to you a long time. I've talked to you about this a long time. If people feel they have a movie in the race,
they'll tune in.
Oh,
yeah.
And this year they have 2 movies in the race where everybody saw them.
The problem is that, and it just so happens that both these movies came out on a good day, which was on the same day, which was great PR. I mean, it was such good PR that they built
for
up.
Movies. Yes. Going to movies.
That the cast walked off the red carpet of Oppenheimer because that was the day the SAG strike started. And they didn't even need their actors to promote their movie.
No.
Good.
They were both that good. But that's an interesting side note that hasn't worked for any other movie except for Barbie and Oppenheimer this year.
Yeah,
there were a couple of other movies that really could have
needed their people. So some comments. Let's go through some comments quick. Echo looks interesting. Vincent D is an awesome Kingpin. Donlin Johnson giving us our flowers and clapping. I'm always a big fan of flowers.
That's champagne glass clinking.
Okay. I'm sorry. My eyes are going. I'm 50. Fuck late to the party. Sorry, y'all. No worries, Raymond. Hope you all had a fantastic holiday. I did. Sean writes,
we did.
I used to be annoyed by Paul Giamatti, but after the show begins, I became a fan of him. He changed my mind. I think he might have been annoyed because his first movie you probably saw him in was Private Parts. And he was supposed to be a bad guy.
His house.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and all that, like, everything he's been in since, he's been, like, Sideways and...
Cinderella,
he's so good.
So good.
The fact in Private Parts, which is where I saw him, he'd been mostly a stage actor at that point. He was so intense, and you just immediately knew this guy was an asshole. He was the villain of the piece. Even though he's the boss, or the programming manager at the radio station. And it was just like, this guy is going to go places. This actor is amazing. And I'm so glad that he's had the career he has. It's just been fantastic.
He blew my mind when he showed up on one episode of Downton Abbey. And his mother comes over, played by Shirley MacLaine. And watching Shirley MacLaine and Paul Giamatti getting up in Maggie Smith's face, and Maggie Smith's giving them the...
that'd be pretty good. I'd love that.
No.
Okay, we've talked a lot about things, but let's talk about important stuff like Huey Lewis in the news, returning some videotapes,
Phil Collins?
feeding me a street cat, Susudio, yes, Phil Collins. Let's get into it about this movie we're doing tonight, called a little movie called American Psycho.
A great first date movie.
I'll tell you what, you can make decisions. Make decisions if somebody likes it or not. And you can make clear decisions, delineate your future in a nutshell. I think, this movie, so it's, first off, it was a hit. I want to get a point that it did very well, surprisingly well for how controversial the book was. But I'm amazed the development hell of this movie and the absolute batshit insane production stories. And looking around at it, just fucking insane, Rich. When you read about it, at one point it had DiCaprio and Oliver Stone. What a different fucking movie that would have been.
Oh, God.
I can't even imagine the level of violence.
I would say look to, Natural Born Killers. And that's probably what this was. And that probably might have been the reason why Stone ultimately passed. Because he might have looked at this material and said, you know what, I've kind of done some of this before.
I read some stuff, interesting stuff. So DiCaprio and Stone were attached, and the production of this is a mess. Mary Harron had come in and taken a crack at the draft because she was friends with the production staff of this company, and it was a company that had something to do with I Shot Andy Warhol. So they gave her a crack at it. By the way, great movie. And she basically had a shot at it because of that. But when she came on, she's like, it's gotta be Christian Bale. Christian Bale's got to play the role. I don't know why, but he came, auditioned to her apartment and did everything great. The production company's like, Christian, we don't know who that is. And you had DiCaprio, who was circling the movie, who had just come off this tiny rowboat movie called Titanic. And so the budget for the movie was $10 million, but the company, Edward Pressman, who's the production producer of this, had agreed already to give DiCaprio $20 million to film the movie and still keep the budget at $6 million, which was hilarious. Harron gets bumped from the project because DiCaprio comes on and only wants to work with a major director. Meanwhile, you have, and this is the greatest story of all time, you have Christian Bale, who is waiting for a shoe to drop and to become, at this point, he's just the guy from Empire of the Sun grown up, right? And he practices for the role, but mostly Empire of the Sun at this point. And so what he does is he keeps in touch with Mary Harron. He stays in shape. He tells Mary Harron at a dinner, I was reading side notes and everything. He tells Mary Harron at a dinner, don't worry, DiCaprio's going to drop out. He can't handle it.
Well, I have heard.
And you're like, what?
I've heard in the past that Christian Bale and DiCaprio had a little tiny bit of beef way back when, because DiCaprio always landed the roles that Christian would audition for.
Well, that's true. And then also, the other people that were approached for this movie were friends of Bale. So, somebody that gets approached, like Ewan McGregor, who, by the way, I was thinking about that. Fascinating choice. Would have been really interesting.
Ewan actually dropped out.
He talked Ewan McGregor to drop out, which is fantastic. He's like, you don't want this role. I want this role. Please let me have this role. And then DiCaprio would only agree to the movie if they would bring in a big name director. So Harron gets fired. Harron goes to the sideline, but she's written one of the scripts that's acceptable. Again, there's 17 scripts. I'm using hyperbole, but there was a lot of scripts of this movie. and she had written one that was moderately acceptable for both labor and management, which is great. And she basically is on the sideline with her script and her partner, Guinevere Turner. And they're on the sideline, and Bale is keeping on telling her, they kept in contact with her. It goes on for 9 months. Bale is kept in shape, had continued to work on the role, and he gets the call from Mary Harron that Leonardo DiCaprio has dropped out to go and film Danny Boyle's movie. What is it? The Beach. And Bale goes, excellent. When do we start filming? And it's like, so it's this, it's a perfect matter of an actor realizing what the material was, realizing that it's a satire, realizing it's a comedy, realizing that all the violence against women in the book, and realizing all these different things are all pieced together. If you have two lady people running things, Guinevere Turner and Mary Harron, we can actually make a statement that's satirical and also, oddly enough, remarkably feminist with this movie and this character. And he sticks around, and it's just one of the greatest stories ever. He stayed around for 9 months, Rich, and wouldn't take jobs in the 9 months while he waited for them to finally come back to him. And Rich, they were offering DiCaprio $20 million. Do you know what Christian Bale made on this movie?
I'm guessing he might have made 2 if he was lucky.
Okay. That's very kind, Rich.
I was thinking like max 500,000. Max
$50,000 for Christian Bale in this movie.
Do we know what the
budget's $8 million
for 8.5?
The shooting budget was $8 million, but it was $6 million. And if they got DiCaprio, they would have paid the $20 million for DiCaprio, and they would have paid extra money for a director. But it's one of the strangest, oddest things. And basically, Harron talked to Pressman and said, DiCaprio's not right for the role. Do you not understand what the role is? That it's DiCaprio looks like a boy. Also, she said, aren't you concerned with bringing DiCaprio and his current fan base to this movie?
Which is all female teenage girls.
Yes, and that was the key. And DiCaprio eventually got to the point where he's just like, I just need something not to do this movie. And he eventually got out, and Bale was there to pick up the pieces. But it's one of the greatest stories ever. The idea that we could have had DiCaprio and fucking Oliver Stone? Can you envision in your mind an Oliver Stone American Psycho not getting any of the satire right, not getting any of the way...
I mean, well, I would say this. I would say, because it's Oliver Stone.
Made it endearing.
It's Oliver Stone, so the satire would be entirely forced on the hedonism of young New Yorkers in the 1980s who were in the financial
yuppies. It would have been, yes.
It would be doing
Wall Street. Wall Street with an X.
Yeah.
Yes. Fair. But and then not as good.
That's probably why he dropped out, because he was like, I don't want to do this.
But that's one of the interesting things. That is a mere drop in the bucket of the production. So Harron spends all this time getting everything together. They write a script. Ellis, Bret Easton Ellis, by the way, whose adaptations are like, they're both very niche films. Like, this movie's very niche, and Less Than Zero is very niche, but acceptable. You know what I mean? Like, but his movies are readily called unfilmable for various reasons, right? Bret Easton Ellis tells them midway through, don't even make the movie. Don't do it. Just don't do it. It makes no sense to do it. So it becomes this, then you start running into, when you're doing, like, the production of this movie is astounding. They run into, when they go to try to shoot New York, they get flagged and protested against. So that forces them, they only can shoot like 4 or 5 scenes in New York. They then have to move to Toronto, where they also are protested against. And they eventually have to move some scenes into a set situation on various lots. And this is the most crazy one of the fucking bunch, Rich. So there was a serial killer in the 90s that lived in Toronto where they were filming this movie that dismembered females and had a copy of this book in his apartment. His name is Bernardo, and he's a famous serial killer. It gets more amazing. So that became a whole thing where they were up against.
Wait. From what I've read, because I came across
illiterate
about Bernardo as well.
He was illiterate.
And his crime spree started in like 1987, years before this.
Right, he had a copy of the book though, and so. But it was illiterate. But they didn't know that, so they still got hell. They still went through chaos to get this film filmed, which is astounding. Also, it
would almost be like somebody going, "Oh, I'm going to direct a new Star Wars movie," and then they find out 8 years ago that this person made a movie about bad people and take a quote out of that to say, "Oh, she's going to ruin Star Wars because this is how she feels." But then again, if you haven't been on social media all week,
we are the worst. Star Wars fans have become the worst fans.
There's two types of people in the world: Star Wars fans and the other people who like Star Wars.
I thought you were going somewhere else. I thought we were going to get political for a brief second.
No.
Because they're only like the top 3 shitty fandoms right now are Trump fandom, Zack Snyder fandom, and Star Wars fandoms who don't actually like Star Wars movies ever, and also talk about things like, why do we have females in them at all? And then you're like, didn't you like Princess Leia as a child? Oh, well, everybody except her.
Well, we liked Princess Leia, but we liked jerking off to Princess Leia.
Yeah, that too.
Absolutely.
I think though what I was trying to get to was people like to jump to conclusions, take things out of context, and not sit back and go, wait a minute, let's do the timeline here. And unfortunately, that's what happened with Bernardo.
Yeah, and that's what happened. But it was the kind of thing where the production, like, once they got shooting, it went fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
But did you hear the other story? Like, DiCaprio not only dropped out because he had the beach, but he had a stern talking to by Gloria Steinem. Did you read about that at all?
No, I
really.
Because
she just saw the novel having violence against women, and
she hated the misogyny of the book so much. And her and Bret, I guess her and Bret Easton Ellis got into it at some point, where he basically said to the mother of feminism, "You clearly either haven't read the fucking book or you don't understand the book." And that became a sticking point. And when DiCaprio, she reached out to DiCaprio and said, "You have all of these adoring female fans, and you're going to expose them to this misogynist trash." And so that was also one of the sticking points, that she personally reached out to Leonardo DiCaprio to get him to not do the movie. And again, all this, the whole time, Christian Bale going, "I knew he wouldn't do it. I just need a shot."
Well, that's the difference between a character actor and a star. Is the star is so worried about remaining a star and having people love them. And that's the brand that they use to build their career off of. Whereas a character doesn't really give a fuck as long as the material is actually.
Well, and I would argue that the places where they were in their careers, is also like matinee idol Leonardo DiCaprio is not Leonardo DiCaprio of The Wolf of Wall Street or Killers of the Flower Moon. Do you know what I mean? So
that's also a thing too. That's a maturity thing.
Yeah, I think. Well, that's the thing. He was super young. Like he was totally whatever anybody wanted him for this role. I was totally wrong. So this movie has a really interesting history that you read about and you just go, "That's amazing," and then it just it eventually opens and it eventually gets to the point where it eventually gets to the point where it opens at the is it Cannes? Hold on. No, it's Sundance. Sorry. It's one of premieres at Sundance in January, and it eventually gets to the point where it hits the rest of the country in April. But the budget, $10 million, which is interesting that we're talking about. And the budget is like, I loved the stories about that the budget was $10 million. Unless we get DiCaprio, then it's $30 million because we have to pay DiCaprio, which is odd. Like, I just think that's funny. Box office. This movie does astoundingly well, Rich. For a movie about serial killers and Huey Lewis and murdering transient ladies of the night. Opening weekend, $4.9 million, which is 32.9% of its total gross. It has an $8 million production budget, so it actually, the total gross of the movie, $34.2 million worldwide, international, domestic. The adjusted domestic is $29 million. So you're looking at like a movie that's out right now, like say The Iron Claw, right? R-rated, heavy subject matter, not a wide audience, but a movie that does very well and makes its money back in droves. Especially since they only paid Christian Bale $50,000. Jesus Christ.
And what's really frustrating though is, this was successful, a great indie film, critically successful as well. And it took Mary Harron another 5 years before she could get another film out. And that was the notorious Betty Page. I'm sorry, Natasha?
That's a crime. Yeah, it's an absolute crime.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's ridiculous.
Also,
which I think is, as we go through this series of female directors, we're going to see this probably again and again.
Or they succeed and then they have to wait. Yeah. They succeed and then they wait. It is really, really noticeable. Although as we progress through, the newer female filmmakers aren't waiting quite as long. Other interesting things about the release in the box office. So there are promotions that Lionsgate did where you could get emails from Patrick Bateman himself. Just crazy. There was also a marketing thing where
Happy Meals were terrible.
Happy Meals were awful. I never got the dismembered hooker. But one of the there was a game where you could get emails from Patrick Bateman, who basically where you're intercepting the emails from to his therapist. There's also a $51,000 was spent by Lionsgate on an online stock market game called Make a Killing with American Psycho, which invited players to invest in films, actors, and musicians using fake Hollywood money. The marketing did little to help the movie's box office, but studio's president Tom Ottenberg still claimed it was a rousing success. The aim was to gain exposure and awareness to the picture, and we did that. Lionsgate will make a tidy profit on this picture. God, that is just not realizing it's in poor taste. Just, we're going to make a tidy profit. Of course, also at release, it got the dreaded NC-17 at the time, all because of the threesome in the middle of the movie, which they eventually cut to 18. Not the violence. The violence in the movie didn't get an NC-17, but the sex threesome in the middle of the movie, they trimmed 18 seconds to make it less sexual, and more like, let's get ready for the chainsaws, I guess.
I think more in the case of we'll hide with sheets and we'll show more mirror shots of him flexing and stuff, so it can show the narcissism of it.
Well, and they demanded one scene be cut. Do you know what scene they cut? They demanded to be cut, Natasha?
Actually, I don't know. Which one?
Okay, so the beginning of the scene, he says, Christy, I believe it's Christy, and you can sit there and I just need you to look at her ass, right?
Don't just sit there. He's staring at it.
Yeah, don't, okay. But the first part of that was supposed to be, I want you to look at her asshole. And so they cut asshole to ass, and that made the MPA very excited. We can definitely stand for it and support this movie now because you're not saying asshole, you're just saying ass.
Okay, so you're thinking about more of the whole ass, not the anus.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you know this, Natasha. In our Rich and I have had these brief discussions. The MPA is a little bit backward with regards to violence and sex. Just a little bit off. They don't really. One's easier than the other or something. I don't know.
There's an interesting documentary, and I think they do bring up. I think they do bring up American Psycho. The documentary that came out a few years later. That just
the Kirby documentary.
Yeah, the Kirby documentary called "This Film Is Not Rated."
Not yet rated.
Not yet rated. Excuse me. Thank you.
No worries.
And it's fantastic, and I would recommend it if people were interested to find out. Again, this is an indie produced film, so they're going to rate it harder than they would if this was produced by one of the major studios, because the major studios all give money to the ratings.
But it's in the movie. You find out it's 10 people sitting in a room. It's 10 people of middle-aged whiteness sitting in a room.
Some of whom aren't parents, even though we're told that they all are.
They're lying. But so they're just crazy. But so they also have to deal with that as well. Also, the box office on this, we have to discuss. This has had so many DVD, Blu-ray, 4K editions, and it is one of the driving forces on why it's one of the most culty of cult films. But a quick comment. Let's see what we got. Let's see. What was the music budget? Have you seen HUEY's interview about the flick? I have read and heard about them. Well, first off, the music budget is insane because they have some of the best. It's easily one of the best music things. Now, part of what happened though was that I don't know if you're talking about this, Joe, but this is an interesting side note that goes along with the production thing. But they got all this music without anybody knowing that the movie that the music was going to appear in was American Psycho. So, at some point, people were pulling music left and right, trying to get the rights back, and there was an album that was put out at some point, but if you're talking about this, Joe, Huey Lewis's manager pulled the music off the movie. Whitney Houston's people definitely pulled their music off the movie. That's why you only hear an instrumental version of Greatest Love of All.
But it's a nice instrumental version. I'll give them
a great instrument. You get the point.
It sounds like it's like a middle part of the song. If I
you get the point. It's a good song. He likes that song. It's about finding your inner self, kind of like what we do on the network. But yeah, I mean, the music is a fascinating thing. The movie has made so much money for Lionsgate and so much money for everybody involved. $34 million is a drop in the bucket, considering it only cost $8 million to make. And then all of the stuff that has gone, oh, look at you with the Huey Lewis in the news.
Honestly, I wish we could see how American Psycho affected the sales of these artists. They probably thought that their music was going to get like panned or whatever, and yet I feel like it would have drove up the amount of their earnings.
I don't know. Well, first off, all of the songs in the movie they were hits anyway.
Yeah.
Like they were all like every one of the albums
they were hit 20 years before the movie came out.
I have something larger about the music I want to kind of address here. Well, since we're here, as a child of the 80s, first of all, Patrick Bateman is a terrible liar. At one point, he says he has to go see Cliff Huxtable at a restaurant. That's the name of Bill Cosby's character on the Cosby Show. And the fact
he might be seeing him at the restaurant. You might need some drugs.
Yeah, that's true. But everything he says about music sounds like he's reading it or half remembering it from reading a Rolling Stone article. Especially when he gets to Huey Lewis and he talks about how the band's earlier stuff before Four and Sports were new wave. Which
Too new wave for me. Too new wave.
For him.
Well,
it was all rhythm and blues. And, kind of like a Philly Blue-Eyed Soul style, similar to...
Well, the music stuff is interesting. It is one of the ways...
With him and he said it was too new wave, I would have gotten the fuck out because I would have known he knew nothing what he was talking about. That's that really stood out.
You would have schooled him and been murdered, Rich. You would have schooled him and been murdered.
I really think time to reread this before coming on this podcast, because this thing right now would be filled with so many Post-its, and I would be like flipping through you mean right here where he talks about this?
Let's talk about the critical response then and now. So, critical response then, pretty good, right? We don't always talk about Rotten Tomatoes, but we do use it as a way of an aggregate. 68% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes. Here's where it gets wild, kids. 85% from the audience. That is a sign of a significant cult film. A movie that people love for no other reason that they've been kind of drawn into the crowd. Like, I like Fight Club like the next person, but you can't tell me 95% of people like Fight Club. So I just look at shit like that and I go, whatever. But 68% sounds about right because it's right around the cusp. Roger Ebert liked it, gave it a good review. 3 out of 4 stars, but his main thing was it was all Bale. Bale was the key to everything. Heroic in a way that allows the character to leap joyfully in despicability. There is no instinct for self-preservation here as an actor, and that is one of the marks of a good actor, which is kind of like what you were saying, Natasha, earlier. Mm-hmm. There's never a moment where you're watching this movie going, wow, Christian Bale is really good in this. You're watching this movie going, wow, Patrick Bateman is a fucking mess. He's just crazy.
You are looking at Christian Bale. You are looking at him going, he's raw. He's giving everything he has. This film could either make or break his career if he could either
I agree with that.
With another film again, or he could end up with a slew of offers. But it is dependent on what he does with this role.
Well, and the key critical things is, like, there are a couple scenes where you look at it and you go, okay, and then if you have any kind of an insight into the film, the 2 scenes I'm thinking about, there's a phone call he makes to a lawyer at some point where he basically confesses all the crimes.
Brilliant.
It's an astounding bit of acting. Now, the interesting thing there is when you read about how many takes it took, it was upwards of 30 takes. And the reason she kept on yelling cut and do it again is because every time he did something, it changed. So by the end of it was this amalgam of whatever. Other things that you hear about the interesting in the movie and, kind of plays into the false narrator or the false concept of what we're actually seeing.
Unreliable narrator.
Unreliable narrator. The idea that Defoe's character, the cop, right? Yep. Do you know about this?
I know about the story of their first scene together, how they did three different versions.
Every scene. No, and it's not one scene. Every scene he did with Bale had one take, 3 takes. One, he's telling the truth, or one, he's a liar. One, you don't know he's a liar, and 2, you're you just find him affable. You like him.
Yeah, and
so
then
three different
between all,
and they're interspersed throughout the entire movie with every scenes he had with Bale. We don't know which one we're getting. So when you rewatch the movie, it's this amazing, like, because the first time you watch Defoe, you're like, I think he knows he's fucking guilty. And then the second time you watch Defoe, you're like, I'm not so sure he knows anymore.
Yeah,
and
that first scene, he had a real Columbo vibe. Like he knew everything was going on. He was just going to ask questions and lead, Patrick down the.
Yeah, but then
the
they
path.
get to the lunch, and it's a weird thing.
It
got to a point that It got to a point where I was actually kind of like nervous. I was like, "Oh shit! Is he going to kill him now? Is the detective the next one on the chopping block, so to speak?" It created an interesting and nice bit of tension there.
Well, and that's the thing. I think the most, I think for me, I haven't watched it in a long time. And so rewatching it for this particular show, it always fun to rewatch something that I can't, and I couldn't remember. I'm going to be honest with you. I couldn't remember if I liked it or not. I didn't think I liked the ending for some reason. When I was going into it today, I was like, I remember watching the ending and going, okay, did they just do like a Bob Newhart thing? Did we just get a Bobby Ewing? We just get a fucking shower scene?
Okay,
because we're not sure.
I have to ask you, what do you think that ending means? Because I have two different ways.
Okay, so I think the ending to me means, first off, I go by what has happened before. So every single person in this friend group gets other people's names wrong. Mm. So I've always viewed it as that they don't know his name. So he's insignificant to them in every conceivable way. And only the people that are at the table having scotch with him, making dinner plans, know his real name. Everybody on the outskirts of all of their conversations at the office, at the restaurants, he's Davis to them. Or he's, like, Leto thinks he's the other guy, right? So, like, nobody knows his fucking name. So it's not that he's insignificant in every conceivable way. And I don't know that I look at it and I just go, he's made this person so uncomfortable that the person's never going to talk to him again. Or make plans to never talk to him again. And doesn't actually know who he is.
They keep saying that Patrick Bateman is a dork. He's a dork. Does he come across as a dork to you? Yeah. Ever?
Yeah, because when he tries to make a joke, it's never really that funny. Fun fact.
He's a dork. I know this. Look at him like, this might be an interesting male versus female reaction to him. To Rich and I, he's a dork because everything he says, his jokes aren't funny. His fucking stories have nothing to do with anything that matters at the table when they're talking about. Like, they're watching Reagan at the end, okay? And the one guy, Justin Theroux, is taking it very seriously. Who the fuck is this guy? He's going to cost us all this money. Fucking, Iran-Contra is going to bring down the fucking administration. He's super upset. And what is Patrick Bateman talking about? Who the fuck knows? He doesn't even know what he's talking about. So I think, I would love what is your other opinion on it? What are your...
I would agree.
Because I'm wrong.
No.
Seeing your eyes.
I can't, no. You never say you're wrong here because this film is so ambiguous sometimes. Particularly.
Yes, I agree.
That you could have a million different ways of how it goes down. So one of my ideas is the lawyer says, nice joke about the call. You didn't kill Paul Allen. I just had lunch with him or dinner with him in London. But earlier on, we also hear that Patrick is related to someone who practically owns the company. Patrick goes back to Paul Allen's apartment to clean up some of the mess from his previous kills. The whole entire place has been white painted. It's on for sale. He's shocked. He doesn't know where the hell he is. Is there a case to be made that the lawyer helped with whoever his family member is, who pretty much owns the corporation, covered everything up.
Ooh.
And now they're trying to make him seem like he's losing his mind.
No, I don't see it.
Because he
I actually think. So you think when you think it's really that's a great idea, but you think it's really nefarious when the lady's like, "Get out and don't ever come back." You think that's way more nefarious?
I think she knew.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Get out and never come back.
I wish I could watch it that way, but
he knows he's coming back.
I've seen so many guys. I've seen so many guys in my life, and Rich understands this. There are so many guys that try to be cooler than they are, and they sit down at the table, and they're talking, and you're talking back to them, and they say something to you, and you go, in your heart, you go, I know that person doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about at all.
Oh, no. I would agree. He can be dorkish. And I love the idea that everything he says makes no fucking sense, not even to him, because it's a mask. It's something he's putting on, thinking this is what people want from him, and he's getting it all wrong. But he doesn't.
Here's the thought then. If all that is a mask, because he knows what he is inside, and then suddenly somebody comes along and says, "No, you can't be a killer because I just had dinner with." The person you said you
I've
killed,
always taken it that nothing's happened.
But that's
not imagined it all. But I'll give you another example, and this maybe would also weight for what Rich and I think. I think Rich and I are on the same page.
No. I think he is a killer. I think some of it was imagined, some of it was real. But at the end, but he defined himself as that killer, and when the lawyer basically takes that away from him, he is suddenly at a loss and doesn't know who he is again.
He's broken. Yeah, he's broken. I'll give you an example. I don't think the stray cat stuff happens.
Oh, no, that's completely...
The cat stuff doesn't happen. The cop kills don't happen. The helicopter.
The helicopter, the killing of the
old lady. All imagined. So he's an unreliable... But I will say that
definitely with the guy in the.
I will say that the book has way more unreliable narrator stuff, and one of the things that Ellis talks about when he talks about the movie is that there's not nearly enough of it in the movie, except the end, right? Because the movie kind of parlays it as like what you're seeing is what you're getting, right? And the book is much more ambiguous.
Yeah.
Up until that last scene. So I think it's an interesting play. I also think the critical response then and now, like the idea that this was a misogynist kind of like whatever and a lot of violence and whatever. This movie's tame by R-rated standards now.
But I watched enough. More women love it now than men do.
Well, I think more women love it because he's pretty easy on the eyes. From a guy perspective,
I disagree. I would disagree. Yeah. Okay. Well, no, I will say yes. Christian Bale is a handsome man, and he's well, defined here. You could, do your laundry on his washboard abs if you want. But
I agreed.
I think women see this as a critique of toxic masculinity, and not just as it was in the 80s, but even as it can be now. And I think, women will watch this movie and get it, and get what Mary Harron is really striving for here, which is to say, this thematically, oddly enough, to go back to what we were talking about before we started talking about this movie, this would make a good double feature with Barbie.
Interesting. Also, the toxic masculinity I really looked into because I thought it was really interesting. Do you guys know anything at all about, and we're going to talk some more on, we're going to talk. There's a little bit of with regards to franchise viability and legacy. We're going to talk to in a moment. But do you guys know anything? Do you guys know anything about the Sigma male thing? Okay, so the reason the movie has achieved cult status recently is because it's part of the hustle culture, the grind culture, the idea that you can be a Sigma male. Now, Sigma males, Rich, I don't know if you know if you're a Sigma male or not, so I'm going to help you because I didn't know what the fuck it was. I didn't know what the fuck it was until I read about it today. Okay, so alpha and sigmas, okay? So alpha males, sigma males. We're going to learn a little bit about culture today. Dominance. An alpha male is dominant over others. A sigma male is dominant above dominance. Socially, alphas are outgoing and social. Sigmas are introverts and loners by choice. Leader, they lead by violence. Alphas lead by violence. Sigmas lead without exerting any authority. The hierarchy, alphas are at the top. Sigma aren't even a part of the hierarchy. Conforms to society. Alphas. Sigmas does not conform to the expectations and rises above others. So there's a whole slew of articles you can find online about whether Patrick Bateman is a sigma male, which is basically all those things. So, like, for example, a sigma male thing would be in a car ride with your very significant other who's talking about marriage and you're listening to your headphones. Is very sigma because you're dominant over her, but you're also a loner and just doing whatever you want to do. So yeah, just where he takes it off, he's like, no, I don't want to do that. And he just puts it right back on. But there's a whole meme culture about this movie that is significant and out there right now. And it is really part of the legacy and the franchise viability.
We're not
franchise viability.
Don't bring it up, please.
Don't bring up the sequel.
It hurt my soul.
Hurt everybody's soul. Hurt Mila Kunis' soul. Almost.
He doesn't like to admit it exists.
I'm gonna say something horrible. Almost hurt Mila Kunis as much as Masterson going to jail soul. Anyway. Ooh, that was bad.
Dude.
Bad JW. But anyway, so they make a sequel. It's trash. Don't watch it. Avoid it. Has any of the stuff that which shouldn't exist. Some comments really. What do we got? Off topic. I may have hair envy, Rich. We all do.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, we don't talk about Fight Club. Those are the rules. That's the movie that I think this movie mostly like. I think the legacy of this movie is that it's.
That would make a good double feature because that movie's also about toxic masculinity in a way.
Yeah, and
it would be a great double feature and a really unreliable narrator. So much so he creates his own person. Kind of like Patrick Bateman's created too. Like, so it is like, I think that's the movie that I was thinking about the most. I don't know which, like, watching both again recently, I haven't watched Fight Club in a while. I think Fight Club does the unreliable narrator stuff as more of a kind of a hustle towards the end so you can look back and go, oh, I didn't get all those clues. I should rewatch the movie again. Should have figured that shit out. This one, the unreliable narrator, is definitely not something. I don't know that it wants to make him unreliable. Like I think part of the unreliable narrator thing that Bret Easton Ellis doesn't get from this movie is that Mary Harron just feels bad for him. So I look at it and I go, she has pity and compassion for him in a place where he doesn't have pity or compassion for himself. You know? I don't know. But I enjoyed it rewatching it much better. Like, I actually think I enjoyed it much better rewatching it now than when I watched it as kind of like just a digestible kind of hit movie to watch. You know, Rich, those movies you watch when you're younger, when you're like, everybody's going to see them and you want to be the person at Blockbuster. Because this was me. I was the person at Blockbuster who could tell people, hey, you should rent Reservoir Dogs or Killing Zoe or any number of really cool movies. And
this thing called El Mariachi. Kind of cool.
Kind of fucking amazing. But yeah, I think as watching it through different eyes now, like we're not having to be the hip person giving you a movie off a wall, which, by the way, I know people don't have it anymore. It was awesome. It was an awesome power to be able to have people walk in on a Friday night and to give them Reservoir Dogs. Or to give... It was an awesome... It was an awesome power that I totally miss. And I miss being able to go and do it with my nephew. Like, I miss trying to find the right movies that you can just, like, you can scroll through things now, but it wasn't the same as finding something exciting on a wall. I don't know.
When I was a kid, I couldn't wait till I could work because I wanted to work at Blockbuster as my first job.
Did you?
No, it closed a year before.
Damn you.
I got my workers papers at 15 and I got so excited. I drove up to Blockbuster and I said, I would like an application.
We're closing. Oh, you couldn't work. You couldn't work there because, you couldn't work there with working papers.
How old are you? I said, I'm 15. They said, well, you can't work here until you're 16. And I was like, okay, that's fine. It's only 1 year.
It was a glorious job.
And it closed.
It was such a good job.
It broke my heart.
I enjoyed that job so much. That was such a great job. But being able...
Beautiful.
Aside from my tangent, being able to watch a movie and realize what it is and not just for the hit quotient of it is nice. And it's something that this show affords us as people, as caretakers, right? It affords us the ability to not only watch something again, but also to pass it out to other people and give them an idea of it's so important. So this has become my extension Blockbuster job, right? But I digress.
The legacy of this movie still remains, and it's actually prevalent amongst 20-year-olds. They love this movie. Which means that in 20 years...
They don't get it.
No, they get it. That's the funny part. They absolutely get it because
they get the satire?
Yes, because they're living in the post-Me Too society.
Oh, okay. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The idea that a Me Too society didn't exist before this movie and now exists is maybe it's part of the legacy. Like the idea...
brought the movie back around. You were falling into the area of, okay, 20th anniversary is coming up. And then it just happened to coincide with a year and a half before that,
Well, it is something I found out today. It's one of the most memed movies.
It is.
On the internet. But it's because of the Sigma thing. It's because of the grind culture thing. They feel Patrick Bateman is a grinder. And I'm just like, he's just killing people, right? And he's an unreliable narrator. I was reading the articles today. I was amazed. He does everything on his own. He doesn't need anybody else. Working hard. I'm like, he came up with his own cards. I'm like, you guys, that is giving him a lot of credit that I don't know as a character he deserves.
We're also seeing a new level of like a new yuppie culture, a new gilded age of new money happening in major cities. So it's interesting to kind of go ahead and look at Paul Allen versus Patrick Bateman. Patrick Bateman wants to be Paul Allen. He wants to have power. He wants to have his influence. He wants to have his style. Old money versus new money.
We didn't even talk about that. This was when Leto was normal.
Yeah. Well,
we didn't even talk about that. He was a weirdo last night, by the way. Showed up with black gloves, no shirt. Like, he was a complete weirdo at the Globes last night. And they put him out there with somebody that was normal. And it was just, my wife looked at me. She's kind of like, as we're trying to get the kids to bed and stuff, she walked past me and she goes, what the fuck is up with him? And I go, it's Jared Leto. That's who he is.
You want to know what's up with him? His emo rock band just put out a new album for the first time in like 10 years as emo culture and and sleaze indie culture is coming back around. Saltburn kind of helped that a couple months ago when they put that movie out. It takes place in 2006 and 2007, which is actually considered at this point to be a period movie.
Just so we're clear.
The blood scene.
Words, just so we're clear, words I wasn't expecting to use over the holiday season. Slurp, vampire sex scene, and dead on the dance floor.
The grave.
Also, just so we're clear, anytime you mention those three words, jumble of words, to people who have seen Saltburn, everybody has the same reaction. It's like,
I love it. Just over the last 24 hours, I've seen the movie.
It's like being in the world's weirdest. It's like being in the world's weirdest. Like, I watched the weirdest fucking thing that you've ever seen movie. It's such a great movie, though. But those two movies, like I would say to everybody, I love Poor Things and I love Saltburn. If you ask me, I will judge you whether or not you can handle either one of them. I will give you a fair representation on whether you're prepared for either one of them. I took a friend to see Poor Things, and nice person. I think I might have broken him.
I will absolutely sit everyone down and say, we're watching Saltburn. This is the feel-good movie on a Friday night, and you are not moving.
Feel-good movie on a Friday night. I don't know.
Woo.
Wow,
that's an ambush. That's an ambush.
That's mean. That's mean.
I'm the person
because if you don't like it, you're not hip then.
I'm the person who will attack a jukebox and go from Frank Sinatra to 9 Inch Nails Closer.
Fair. So. It's fair. Legacy of this movie, it's a great movie. It should be watched. I actually think the Bale performance kind of gives you a heads up of what he's going to become when he gets other roles is also something I would look at. Also the cast of there's so many people Reese Witherspoon, Close Venny, Justin Theroux, Josh Lucas, the kid who plays the one person everybody hates. What's his name? Lucius. Matt Ross, Lewis Carruthers. By the way, that's the other thing that needs to be discussed really quick. Not homophobic. I actually think he doesn't actually know if he's attracted to him or not. So I think he's
not attracted to him. He's attracted to what he wants to be. And I think that's kind of the message around this movie is everyone's trying to be something they're not. Patrick Bateman wants to be Paul Allen. Lewis Carruthers wants to be Patrick Bateman. And they all fail horribly.
It's a great movie, though. I would say American Psycho and Saltburn is a good double bill too. If you really want to run that freak flag high.
But I would say Saltburn pairs well with Talented Mr. Ripley.
Yes, but I would say the problem there is the stuff you get in the Talented Mr. Ripley is so watered down compared to Saltburn. So I'll give you an example. If you tell somebody that is a fan of the Talented Mr. Ripley and you think, hey, maybe they might like Saltburn, Natasha, you would, and Rich would, and I would. But not everybody would like Saltburn like the Talented Mr. Ripley. It's just how they're presented.
I see what you're saying.
Aesthetically, the Talented Mr. Ripley is so much easier to swallow for the middle country. But Saltburn might be a better version of it.
It's the modern version of Talented Mr. Ripley. It doesn't
I didn't think I was going to be using slurp during the holidays. Just saying. Okay, so a couple things matters of business before we wrap up for tonight. Rich and Natasha know about this, but we're announcing it here as well in case you haven't heard. Joe and I are going to MegaCon. So we're going to introduce people in the Indie Escape Network. We are going to set up some interviews, I think, and just go around to MegaCon and do some live reporting from MegaCon. It's pretty big. There's a lot of people going to MegaCon, and there's a lot of stars and stuff going. I don't know what's going to happen. Rich and Joe and I are very excited, but that's something to look forward to. Some MegaCon stuff coming in February. Also coming in February, we are part of something called HauntCon, which is, again, Happy New Year. Let's partner up. HauntCon. It's a media outlet partnership that we're having with HauntCon. They are a giant haunting indie horror film showcase, and also for people who run haunted houses. So it's a major convention that's coming on February 10th. So February is looking very busy for us. Super excited. We got 2 cons right in a row, and they're both a little bit different. Also, again, we haven't talked about it enough. If you're creative and you have a movie trailer or commercial or a product or something you might like, email it to us. We'll play it on an upcoming show. We'll talk about it a little bit, get you a little bit of exposure, because we're creatives helping other creatives. We're the Indie Escape members, where creatives unite. Where can people find you, Miss Natasha? What are you working on?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And currently, right now, I'm working on nothing. It's my hibernation period.
Oh, it's glorious.
So
we just had 2. You weren't here. Rich and I were talking about the 2 weeks off. I was like, this is nice. It's also why, if you look at my current schedule for the show,
I am working on one thing.
You're working on a cold. That's not really working on something. That's a bummer. Get better. Where can people find you if they're looking for you while in hibernation?
And TikTok.
There you go. Rich, what do you got coming up? What are you working on?
Okay, all of my writing can
The
be
hair
found.
thing is jealousy inducing, by the way. It's the flip. The flip was very so very Muppet of you.
Actually, he's only about 2 strands away. If I style it a little with a blow dryer, you could get a little bit of that Justin Bieber 2008,
I'm not going to say Justin Bieber. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to say the one word that it reminded. Do the flip again, and then I'll do it for you. Do the flip. Phenomenon. Phenomenon. Dun, 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 dun.
No.
Okay. Can I throw my plug so I can go to bed?
The other day.
Good. Throw your plugs.
Okay. All of my writing can be found at filmbuffonline.com. I do a second podcast with my very good friend, Natasha Bogutzki, right there. And
she ducked down while she was saying
we've had a couple weeks off because of the vacation as well. We're going to be back probably next week to do our pre-Academy Award nomination show. You can find that at bigpicturepod.com or also at filmbuffonline.com. And you can find me on the socials on Twitter and Blue Sky at FilmBuffRich.
And Instagram at FilmBuffRich.
I don't use my
and Instagram at FilmBuffRich. You can find me, JW the Movie Guy, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm not on TikTok, so don't look for me there. You can also find me here tomorrow night, loud and nerdy. Our triumphant return to 2024. We will have Bill Gadavakis from FilmBuff Online on to talk about the state of comic book film. We will also be debuting a brand new thing that is strictly for me. I can't wait. It only comes around because of my birthday, but we're going to start over. We're going to start where it all began, with really great writing on television. And where did it all begin? It began in 1959 on a show called The Twilight Zone. Yes. We are going to do every episode of Loud and Nerdy going forward. We're going to do one episode in order of The Twilight Zone.
Wow.
It will be the Twilight Zone corner. It will take me to my death, inevitably 10 years from now. Hopefully, knock on wood, it's longer. But we're going to do one episode a week. I think we're doing one with Earl Holliman tomorrow. Very exciting. The first ever Twilight Zone episode. And that will be a weekly thing where you can play along and join in with us. So you can say, I'm going to tune in tonight to watch Loud and Nerdy. They're on this episode of the Twilight Zone. I can watch and we can talk about it. And all three of us are going to do it. Everybody's going to do their homework. It's going to be amazing. Really cool comments. Bill, Joe, I worked at Blockbuster in college. Yep, I loved it. It's probably one of my favorite jobs. I was also a camp counselor. It was a really good job, too. That was a very odd movie, laugh out loud. I don't know which one he's talking about.
Saltburn,
probably.
Saltburn, yeah, maybe. Great episode, guys. Hair flipping contest coming soon. No, there's not. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see everybody next week, where we take a look at this amazing film by a Coppola.
Yes.
Marie Antoinette, Kirsten Dunst. One of the great soundtracks, one of the great movies that has very much a cult following like American Psycho. So we'll see everybody next week. Thank you for joining us. Have a great week. 2024 is going to be amazing. Rich and I are working on everything we're doing. It's going to be incredible. Natasha may come along for the ride some weeks. It's going to be